Good day once again. We are at Valley View University, OUB campus, our 2022 Week of Spiritual Emphasis, and the theme is Revelation, Age of Elohim. And to make the day very important and very lovely, we have a speaker who wants to spend some time with him and also interact with him. But you know, today being a very good day, I have his companion, his associate, and as well as his elder with us, who happens to be an alumnus of Valley View University also. So today we are doing 2 interviews at once. So you'll be well informed, and they will share their experience with us. And I know you are ready to get those jits and tidbits and also the ups and downs in their lives and what they really do. You are hearing the story from they themselves, and I know you'll be satisfied. So I'll take this opportunity to welcome Elder Kofi Antubam. Elder, you're welcome.
Thank you, Pastor.
Since you went, how many times have you been home?
Oh, man, that's a good question. This will be my second time coming home since 2003.
Wow. So you can imagine, they've already turned him an American. Then we have our speaker as well, Pastor Robert Edwards. Pastor, welcome once again.
Good to be here.
And I learned this is your first time in Ghana.
My very first time.
And in Africa? In Africa, what's the number of times have you been in Africa?
So I think 4 times. I've been to Nigeria twice,
okay,
Kenya once, and now Ghana.
Wow, thank you very much. And we are grateful, and you are all welcome. We have our audience over here, and they are seated, eager to know the speaker and his associates. Then we have our viewing audience too at their various homes. And you can know that we are also on Hope Channel Ghana handle, that is Facebook, on all their handles. The Valley View University handle as well. So we are live, and I know, Elder, your family can be watching you at home. And to start with, I am very excited because we've had a background behind-the-scenes conversation. Elder Antubam, we want to start. You are the associate, so we want to start with you. Tell us, what is your childhood life in Ghana like? Who are your parents? Can you share with us?
Thank you, Pastor. So my name is Kofi Antubam. My dad is a retired Seventh-day Adventist church pastor. Pastor Kofi Antubam, he's currently retired, and he's living in Kumasi. And my mom is Elizabeth Abna Antubam. So my childhood, I was born in a village in Asante Bekwai, specifically Jakobu. I was not born in a hospital. My mom was pregnant, and before they could take her to the hospital, I said, I can't take it anymore, so I decided to come out. So I was born at home, and at 2 months old, I was taken to Nigeria.
Wow.
So I basically grew up in Nigeria up till age 6. Before my dad graduated from Aswa then.
Okay.
And then we moved to the North Ghana Mission. And so I went to Wa, Upper West Region, to continue my education there in class 3, all the way to class 6. Took the common entrance, came to Tamale for my secondary education, and then I decided, okay, I needed to go back to Nigeria because that's where I grew up.
Okay.
So I went to now Babcock to start my college program, and then in Babcock, something happened. Life was difficult. School fees was a challenge. So I came back to Ghana for canvassing, and I got sick. So I couldn't go back. And that is how I ended up in Valley View in November of 1997.
Okay.
So I graduated in 99, and then I don't know what else.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is Pastor Edwards, did you know this about him?
No.
So you could see where he mentioned he was born. You could relate. There was no hospital. So there were these midwives and those traditional midwives. They are very good. They were very good until recently we phased them off the system. That is a nice summary you've given to us about your childhood till your adulthood. And can you share with us, you are getting to know him more?
Yes, well, first of all, I just found out that he married a woman that has his mother's name.
Really?
I'm like, wow, okay, that's interesting. In regards to me, my childhood started, I was born premature.
Really?
My mother, when she was about 6.5, almost 7 months pregnant, was in Chicago, Illinois, in the winter, and she fell down some steps. So she made it back to Memphis, but then she had an early delivery. So when I was born, I weighed 2.5 pounds. And I lived in an incubator for 3 months.
Wow.
And by the time I came home, my baby bed, Kofi, was a dresser drawer.
Whoa.
That's how small I was.
Whoa.
So the doctor declared that I would be slow. I was not going to be able to learn, and I wouldn't be tall. Some people say that prediction came true. So up until age 2, I never walked nor crawled.
Wow.
I would just slide. So at age 2, my mother said there was a stuffed animal on a table, a low table. And she said, I drugged myself over, and I pulled myself up, grabbed that stuffed animal, and walked off like a grown man.
Really? Just like that?
Just like that.
Just like that?
And I've been fast ever since. All right?
Really?
So I grew up in elementary, single-parent home.
Okay.
We sort of were we call them latchkey children, meaning your mother's gone to work and you have a key around your neck. You let yourself in, you don't let anybody in, and you basically take care of yourself. And so my sister and I still are very close because we had each other. And then we had other brothers and sisters, and in my culture, you took care of your younger brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
I had to take my younger brother with me on dates, all right, because you could not leave him.
Yeah.
Nowadays, kids don't even want to keep their brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
So I grew up in elementary, and in my early childhood, I was a little difficult. I got hit by a car. I got hit trying to test Newton's theory of gravity. Got hit in the head with a brick that I threw up.
Yeah.
I got stabbed by somebody with a pencil in kindergarten. Tried to imitate TV cartoons where bullets fire and you block it with a garbage can top. I set a bullet on fire and stood to wait on it to come, and it almost got me through my leg.
Whoa.
I disobeyed my mother and went down to a river and almost drowned. I can go on and on. It's a miracle I'm here.
Yeah.
And so once I made it out of junior high and high school, as I said this morning, at age 17, I joined the Marines.
Whoa.
After joining the Marines, I ended up getting Bible studies by a group of people who were Seventh-day Adventists.
Okay.
I became an Adventist at age 19.
Okay.
Felt a call to ministry and ended up going to Oakwood. After studying pre-law, I was going to study to be a lawyer.
Okay.
After studying pre-law, I went to Oakwood and became a pastor at age 25, and it's the only thing I've done since.
Wow. Wow, this is interesting. I think a round of applause will do.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're a miracle baby.
Oh, yeah.
Because right from your childbirth up to date, you can see that it's not like Kofi's own. But Kofi, you didn't tell us you have siblings.
Well, yes, I do have siblings. I'm sandwiched between two sisters.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And where are they now?
Both of my sisters are in Kumasi.
Wow.
Yes, they are in Kumasi.
So they know you are in Ghana now.
Yes, as a matter of fact, one of them was at the airport to meet us.
Okay.
So, yes.
You know, Kumasi is a new state now. It's called Kumerica.
I've heard that.
Oh, okay.
But since it got that name, I've never been there. So.
Yeah, you need a visa before you go.
Wow.
I'll have to make sure I do that.
Thank you very much. And what was the experience like as your tender age? Because you were just telling us you just went through very quickly. But what was the learning ability? So I'm coming to Pastor Edward. When you said the doctor said you couldn't learn, you couldn't absorb. How was it like your absorption and your learning abilities?
So early on, I got in trouble at school. And it wasn't because I couldn't learn.
Okay.
It was because they didn't know how to teach me.
Okay. That is interesting. That's a good one.
Because what would happen is I absorbed stuff like a sponge.
Okay.
So you put something before me that you did with all the other classmates, I would finish it. But they didn't say, okay, now go to the next chapter or read a book.
Okay.
They told you to sit there and wait on everybody else. Well, how can I wait? So I would make spitballs, shoot people, pull girls' hair. I got in trouble. But it wasn't because I wasn't learning.
Okay.
It was simply because they didn't know how to teach me.
Okay.
And that continued in the elementary. But by the time I got to like junior high, then I was able to move. In high school, I was able to move. And so early on, it was just a challenge of teachers not being trained to work with actually advanced kids.
Yeah.
And so actually, they said I couldn't learn. The problem was I learned so fast that they couldn't keep up.
Okay. That is a very good thing to note. But whilst we are in an education environment, lecturers and teachers need to know the abilities of the children to keep them up.
Yes.
Because I got an opportunity to sit in a class where you'll be taught how to effectively teach. And this is one of the reasons, because the child that is ahead of the class, how you can bring them together, the one that is behind. And it's a good thing to note. I think it's a good thing. Now the current teachers are learning how to make sure they teach, to make sure they bridge the gap between the slow learner
and a
fast learner. Because the doctor said you be a slow learner.
Oh,
and
yes.
God said you be a fast learner rather.
Oh, yes.
So that's the main reason why.
Yeah.
Kofi, what was the challenge in Nigeria like?
Well, I don't know, but I believe that for my part, God has always been gracious to me. Because in Nigeria, I went there in '96 to start my college program. And soon after, I think after 2 quarters, I ran out of money. And so I decided to come back to Ghana, go to Upper West to do some canvassing. The challenge was that, I'm not a good salesperson.
Really?
I believe that's not my strength. And so I did my best, got some money, but I got sick and spent the money on hospital bills. So by the time I could return, there was no money to go back to school. Now on campus, when I was there in Nigeria, like I said earlier, my dad is a pastor. So the expectation was that for pastors' kids, the union or the conference will send our money to the school so our fees are taken care of. Unfortunately for me, North Ghana did not have money. And so everybody's school fees would come in but Kofi Antobam's. And so it got to a point, they will not allow me to go to the cafeteria to eat. They will not allow me to go to classes. And so out of that frustration, I came back to Ghana. And it didn't stop there. Actually, in Valley View, I'll come to that later on, but it continued here as well. But Nigeria was that challenge. And I remember one of the lecturers saying that, Kofi, you are too young. I was 17 years then. And she did not understand why I should be living off campus at the age of 17. Because it was only the elderly who were allowed to stay off campus. But I was doing that because I couldn't afford to live in the dorm. But that's how Nigeria went.
Okay. Because I can see some of our international students who relate to what you're saying. That they are here and they have some challenge with fees coming down and other things. So sharing this is an inspiration to them as well. And Pastor Edwards, your college, Oakwood, how was it like? No, I'll be knowing the conversion period process, but can you share with us your college or the Oakwood experience? But you were telling me something that was very interesting.
Yes. So I started out in a junior college.
Okay.
Because after I became Seventh-day Adventist, I was studying to be a lawyer, but felt the call to ministry. Well, I was in the military, and unfortunately, when I joined, I was not Seventh-day Adventist. So I was in the reserves, and I had to go on Saturdays. So after I became a Seventh-day Adventist, I took a stand about not going on Saturdays, but the military didn't like that. So they told me that if I didn't come, that they would strip me of my stripes, take my money, and then put me in jail.
Wow.
In the brig. So I just refused to go on Saturdays. I tried to make it up on Sundays, but they would only let me make up so many. And after that, that's when they started taking my stripes, taking my money. And then finally they called me together with a group of what we call military brass. Everybody there had something clipped on their shoulder, majors, colonel, lieutenant, second lieutenant. And they basically threatened me. And I never forget, I went home that day scared because I tried to call my pastor to get him to go with me to the meeting, couldn't reach him. I came home and nobody was home. That never happens. That never happens. I stayed there with my mother, my father, and my brothers and sisters. Nobody home. I'm scared, I'm nervous. I'm standing for the Lord, but I'm scared. Anybody believe you stand for him and you're not scared, then you've never stood for him. So I was scared. Walked the whole house, nobody was there. On the table was a cake. I remember this vividly. I walked back to the back, I came back, and I stood there. But next to the cake was a book, and it was open. My mother had purchased the Conflict of Ages series. That is Desire of Ages, Great Controversy, Prophets and Kings, Patriarchs and Prophets. And Patriarchs and Prophets was open. And it was open to a chapter called First Christians, Loyal and True. And there was a picture of a woman standing at a stake with the fire being lit. And the Lord said to me, they may have threatened you with jail, take your stripe and your money, but they did not threaten you with death.
Okay.
And I fell on my knees and apologized to God.
Okay.
And I got up and said, God, you have called me to ministry. If you want me to go to Oakwood, then I need to get a discharge from the military, and there was a program I wanted to do, literature evangelism, go sell books, but I wasn't a student. I said, you have to get me there as a literature evangelist, even though I'm not a student. So I talked with the literature evangelist leader. He told me, I'll let you know something that Monday. Well, on Saturday, I didn't go to the mailbox. And if somebody went to the mailbox, they took a brown paper bag. They would get the mail out and put it in the bag. You don't look at it. On Sunday, I opened it. It was my discharge.
Wow.
On Monday, the guy called me, and I said, before you answer, I'm going to tell you your answer. He's like, how you going to tell me? I said, okay, if I'm wrong, you tell me. You going to tell me yes. Come. He sort of stuttered. He said, yes. And I was like, because God answered my prayer. So I went to Oakwood as a non-student first. And on that first visit, that trip, ironically, my wife was on the campaign with me.
Really?
I didn't know she was going to be my wife. So she was on the campaign with me. I went to Oakwood as a student. I studied there first for 2 months. Then I went overseas as a student missionary to Korea. Then I came back, did 2 years, graduated, but I'm going to say something to all of you theology majors. I didn't have a call when I graduated. That's what they said is a call, a church or a place. So the president came with a program and he told me, he said, if God has called you to ministry, then you should go out and start a church. And I'm like, start a church? He said, I'll give you $600 a month and some film strips and a projector. It's called a Duquesne machine. So I had that case, and he said, I'm going to give you 1 year to start a church. After that 1 year, if you don't start one, we're not obligated to you. So I'm like, man, what do I do? So I went home and talked to my non-Christian stepfather. All the theology folk and other Baptists tell me, they're doing you wrong. You graduated and they're not picking you up. They did you wrong. So I went to my non-Christian stepfather and told him about it. And I said, what do you think? They've offered me this, over that. What do you think? And he looked at me and said, let me ask you a question. He said, if they didn't give you $600, would you still preach? I said, yes. He said, so they're going to give you $600 to do something you would do for free. Yeah. And you want to know what I call that? I said, yes. He said, opportunity. Yeah. And I took that opportunity. And watch this. The first person I studied with was my first baptism.
Really?
And then that person introduced me to a friend. And then they introduced me to family. And then before you know it, and within that year, God started a church that exists to this day.
Really? So what was the name of that church?
It is called, amen, it is Owensboro Seventh-day Adventist Church in Owensboro, Kentucky.
Okay.
And so that church now has been in existence for almost 40 years.
40 years?
Yes.
So you're talking about 40 years ago?
Yes.
Really?
I started pastoring at age 25.
Wow.
In June, I will be 65.
Wow.
And I still play basketball.
You still play basketball?
Yeah, so don't challenge me.
Really?
I got a hook. I got a hook shot.
Our basketball court here is very.
Oh, I saw it.
You saw it?
Oh, I saw it.
Tomorrow morning.
I saw it.
This is very interesting.
Yeah.
Because it seems like we are going back to that stage of ministry. The call to the ministry. In Ghana here too, we could see many people graduating as theology major, but not being called by the conference. They are going through, and I'm agreeing with you that one too can be a key. That you can start even when you are not called. You can work for free when you are given a stipend. And the division has come out with a program of such.
Good.
That's the $600 that you're talking about.
And the thing about that program, as I think about it, we encourage at Oakwood our students to be double majors.
Okay. Okay.
Paul was a double major.
Yeah.
Tent making and preaching. And the reason why I say that, I think as a Christian, you need to face reality.
Sure.
Not everybody's going to be picked up full time.
Pastor, I believe you need to restate it again.
Okay?
Because we need to hear it clearly.
Yes. So we encourage our theology majors or religion majors to have a double major, because you've got to eat while you're on your way. Okay? Because when they graduate, unfortunately, not everybody gets that opportunity. But there's nothing wrong with you being a lawyer and working with a church, or being a business person and working with a church. We know that apostles, before they went full time, were fishermen and tent makers. And I think we've done an injustice to bring you into a system that we know we only have so many spots, and not encourage you to do something while you wait. And so while I was on that $600 program, I also worked with a community youth center. I sold magazines. In other words, I had to take care of myself, and I was by myself. And so it doesn't mean you haven't been called, okay? This is the key. God called me to ministry. That's why I took that opportunity. When I married my wife, I asked my wife a question after the wedding, not before. Don't ask him this before the wedding.
What?
I said, honey, I said, let me ask you a question. I said, when you met me and engaged to me and you accepted my proposal in marriage, I wasn't making any money. So why did you marry me? And here was her response. I saw your work ethics, and I knew one day you would make some money.
Okay. I think a round of applause.
Yeah.
The work ethics.
It's the work ethic. She saw how diligent I was, even though I wasn't getting paid enough. I did not make excuses. I didn't complain. I didn't make issues. Do you know how long I was on that program?
No.
3 years.
Wow.
While my former classmates graduated and got a church. And one day I went to the president's house. He said, I know you heard that we picked up some people. Now here I am out there working, you haven't picked me up.
Yeah.
And he said these words, your turn will come.
Sure.
So I turned around like, okay, worked another year.
They went away.
You know, he turned around the next year, he said, I know you heard that I picked up some people. I said, yes. And he said these words, your turn will come.
Okay. Pastor, hold on. Your turn will come again. Once I go to perform.
Yeah, go.
Let him in Valley View University, will you be here? How come you landed over here? And how was life like over here? As the turn of Pastor Edwards coming.
All right, so in 97, after an unsuccessful canvassing, I went to my parents. At the time, my dad was pastoring in Kitikrachi in the Volta region. So I went home, told them, hey, I don't have money to go back to school. And I remember my mother. She was a petty trader by then, and she used to make kinky. And so she calls me in one evening after church and says, Kofi, this is all I have. If you want, you can take that and go to school. Bear in mind, at the time, that money was not even a quarter of my school fees. But I took it and said, okay, I'm heading back to Nigeria. I got to Accra, got to the Union, and one Michael Asa, I don't know if he teaches here or he doesn't teach here anymore, but I saw Michael at the Union, and Michael said, hey, Kofi, we missed you at school. So did you hear that they've increased the school fees? And I said, no.
At Nigeria?
In Nigeria. Now, what I was taking with me was not even enough. And now they had increased the school fees again. So I just said, that's it. I went and bought post-secondary forms to go to Kuforidia Asukori Training College. And during that process, Pastor Lai then called me and said, hey, your dad has spoken with me. You may want to consider coming to Valley View. And, you know, as a young kid, this is what I said. prior to going to Aswa, I wanted to come to Valley View at the time, but it was only offering. Valley View was a 2-year program. So I told my dad, no, I want to go straight to Aswa. No, I want to come to Valley View, but my dad said, no, go to Aswa because you complete 2 years here and you have to go to Aswa anyways. And so when it happened this way and I was told to come here, I said, no way. And this was the words I used. I said, have you seen anybody going to a secondary school and coming back to a junior school? And I did not want to show up here. So I remember Pastor Lai called a couple of times. And whenever he said he was coming to the union to pick me up, I'll wait about 40 minutes into his journey and I'll disappear from home.
Wow.
I'll walk to where the Institute of Journalism was, and then Pastor Lai will come and wait and wait and wait and leave. And so I didn't want to come to Valley View. That was a fact. I just didn't want to come to Valley View. I felt it was bringing me backwards. Yes. So a couple of pastors spoke to me that listen to what your dad is saying and go, and I still said I wouldn't. So one evening I was home, and something just dawned on me. Hey, this pastor is saying it, this person is saying it, you better listen. So I decided I'll come to Valley View after all. So on a Sunday morning, I think it was November 6, 97, I got up. And I told Pastor Anani, I used to live with Pastor Anani Afari, I told him that I'll go to Valley View. And he said, are you sure? Because he knew the history. Yeah. And I said, yes, I'll go. Fortunately, there was a student, Pastor Lims. He was having a wedding at Laboni that day. So Pastor Anani drove me to Laboni SDA Church, and then I joined the students who had come for the wedding, and that is how I landed on Valley View campus.
Wow, that is interesting.
Yes.
You know, we have many students who are here who never wants to be here. Like the way you don't want to be here. And they can relate. They can relate with what exactly you are saying. Friends, you are still with us on Valley View campus, and we are here with our speaker for the week, that is Pastor Robert Edwards. I've not told him something, but my birth cousin is Robert.
Oh.
And he is going to be the speaker for the Spiritual Emphasis 2022 in this whole week. So we're getting to know him closer, more personal. Then he came with his associate. He's the person of Elder Kofi Antubam. I wanted to know why he didn't pick the pastoral channel. Rather, he chose the eldership.
Oh, of
because
course.
he needs to graduate. If you don't want to live from Backport to Valley View, you want to go ahead. Why the only son of a minister and you didn't become a minister? Why?
That's a big question. You know, I believe that you don't have to be a pastor to minister.
Please make it clear. You can put it in the quote.
I believe you don't have to be a pastor to minister.
Okay.
You don't have to be a pastor to do God's work. That's my personal philosophy.
Okay.
And so, you know, my dad, he would have wished that I became a pastor. But I told him, you know, that's not my line of profession. I want to go into business. So, you know, initially, I did not want to even go into business. My first accounting class, I got a 25%.
Over
25%.
Over 100.
100. So I bombed it because in secondary school, I was always laughing at the students who did accounting and said, why would you waste your time trying to count something that somebody has spent? Why would you waste your time on that? So I wasn't serious with accounting. And when I went to ASWA, I remember my first accounting class, I got a 25%, and I cried. Because by God's grace, I was over there when it comes to academics. So that was the first time in my life getting a 25% on a test. So I cried. And so a professor, Mr. Luke Onwa, wherever I sit, I want to give him a shout out because that professor took time to walk me through accounting.
Okay.
and I fell in love with accounting. And I told my dad, Dad, you can be the pastor. The others can be the pastor, and I'll count your money for you.
Really?
So that's why I didn't go into. But I believe that you can minister, you can serve God in any capacity, not necessarily being a pastor.
You know, I'm relating to this, the two of you. I'm enjoying you because, you know, I always say when God called Moses, he asked him, what is in your hand? And Moses said, I have a staff. And what was the staff? That was a trade he has practiced for 40 years. So you could see that being a minister, you are not called with an empty hand. That I have a double major. I'm a carpenter by profession. So before I became a theology student as well. So you could see that it is not only the straight line theology, but you need to have a profession that makes the theology very potent, like the way Moses won. And you are the contemporary Moses that I'm relating to. And I thank God for that. And your statement says you don't need to be a pastor before you minister. Now I think you are doing more than the pastor's work, because you are accompanying your dad, Pastor Edwards.
Oh, let me comment on that.
Okay.
The reality is, he is a member of a church that his engagement helped to build and create.
Okay.
This church just became officially a church about 3 months ago.
3 months?
3 months ago.
For how long have you been in existence?
But it started with what is the original 8.
Wow.
And that was in what year?
2003.
In 2003, 8 people, 8 Ghanaians decided to have Sabbath school. Then it grew into, since we're doing Sabbath school, let's have church. 2003, wow. This is 2022. That's 19 years later, a church organized, lay-driven. Never had a pastor. It was the elders and the deacons. He may not be a pastor, but his impact and influence is that of a pastor. You do not have to be called by the conference to be called. This is important. You don't have to be called by the conference. And I think one of the challenges we have, you know, we have this thing of ordination, right? And we strive to be ordained. But if you remember, before ordination, there's anointing.
Sure.
Many are ordained but not anointed. But if you're anointed by God, whether you get ordained or official call, you still must minister. So don't get discouraged if you don't get quote unquote picked up. But you need to ask yourself a question. Has God anointed me? He has, not the conference. He has anointed me. And that's what you must remember.
Do that. A round of applause. This is a profound statement, because most of our theology graduates I have friends who are graduated for 6 years. They've not been called by the conference, but they've done theology. And what you're saying, we are extending that to comfort and to let them know that, first of all, you need a major. The secondly, you need the anointing. The anointing is very important. So it's like it relates to the other students, the nursing,
same thing.
The business students,
yes.
The development students. You need not to be employed before you practice.
Yes.
So you could see that it really relates.
So I just want to give one good example.
Okay.
I had a young man who graduated with me from seminary, Leon Brown. Leon turned around and did not get a call, didn't even get to do the program I was on. Yeah. And so about 8 to 10 years, Leon did not get anything. Then finally, Leon got a call to pastor. Since then, Leon has been in my position as a vice president. Leon then went on to become the president of a conference.
Wow.
And then earlier this year or late last year, Leon is now Secretary of Pacific Union.
Really?
10 years
Without being called.
without getting a job. And now he's the Secretary of a union. So you got to understand, God's timing may not be your timing. But God can do more with a double-edged sword than he can a butter knife. So I would encourage you and push you again, get you a dual education so that you can be working to survive while you still minister. And one day, you may be the person who's doing the hiring.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. What I'm picking from what you just said, keep doing what you're doing, and you'll be called to the position. I think I relate to that. Thank you very much. Now, I like the fun part. How did you meet your wife?
Oh, now you get
We love that. We love to hear that.
Yeah, now you're getting to the fun part. How did I meet my wife? Realistically, it started at age 19.
Really?
Yes. At age 19, I became a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. I'd been a Christian, a Baptist Christian, but there were some liberties I had as a Baptist Christian. I used to pray that God let me make it to Sunday. Because, you know, Sunday evening to Saturday, my life wasn't the most godliest. But if I can make it to Sunday, I'll start all over. So I had an incident with a former girlfriend out of the Marines that I broke up with. And she and I got into a confrontation, and her mother held the gun to my head and pulled the trigger. But the gun didn't go off. So she held it again and pulled the trigger, but it didn't go off. The Lord spared me that night. I ended up in depression because I lost that girl. I'm like, man, don't you lose it over no girl. We used to say, you miss one bus, catch another one. You miss one taxi, catch another one. And so lo and behold, the Lord brought me out of it. And at age 19, when I became a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, I made a vow. God, until I get married, I will not have sex. But I went a little further. And I won't even kiss a woman until I get married. Age 19. So then I prayed, Lord, since you keeping me, keep my wife. So I asked the Lord to keep my wife because he was keeping me. So I dated. But then I told you I went to Oakwood. And on that trip that I went to Oakwood for 1 month, my wife was there. My wife could not stand me. You're not going to believe it. She said, he talked too much.
Really?
That's what my wife said. Can't believe that. And so lo and behold, I went on. I was dating this girl I told you all about, where my wife was watching from the window. Turn around, and that church I told you I pastored had an evangelistic meeting, and I went to her city to meet another girl. And I asked my wife to take me to the girl's house.
Really?
So we turned around and went. That girl turned around, and I just went to go meet her, but it was like, that ain't gonna work. So I had some teenagers with me, and on my way back to the car, I walked my wife to her car, who then was just a friend, walked back to my car, and the teenagers in the car said, you gonna marry her?
Ooh.
I'm like, nah, So then I had a guest who came to my church to preach, and we had dinner together, and lo and behold, my wife left, and he looked at me and said, you gonna marry her? I'm like, I'm not marrying her. So I just left it alone. So then we went to school, graduated, and this is the clicker. I met my wife in my hometown. She ended up staying with my uncle, and I didn't even know it.
Okay.
She had a group of students that she took for selling magazines. She was a teacher of a church school. And during that time, my uncle told me, there's a girl there that knows you. And he wouldn't tell me her name. And so I was out there playing basketball, had my white tube socks on, my short, gym short. Back in the day, we wore them short. And then I had my cutoff shirt showing my six-pack. All right, now I got a one-pack, all right? And lo and behold, he took me and turned around and introduced me to Denise. So Denise and I met up. Denise said she didn't think nothing about me because she just knew I married that girl that she saw me with. Until she saw that girl and said, how's Robert doing? I said, well, I don't know. You know, we're not together. She's like, what? Y'all not together? I said, no. So then Denise set me up. I told Denise, hey, you get a chance, come visit me at my church. So she came to visit me. That girl went to the beauty shop and got her hair done, bought a brand new outfit, and some brand new tight shoes. I know they were too tight. I'm up teaching Sabbath school at that church I started. And the door swings open. And Sister Girl walked in. Oh my God. I didn't even realize I stopped teaching. And I'm just doing this. Then finally dawned on me, hey, you're in front of everybody. So I broke it up and talked. Afterwards, we went to dinner. I couldn't even eat. I sat there watching her eat.
Really?
I'm just looking. And then finally, I took her by one of my members' house. She spent the night. Sunday, she went to go home. And I was like, your car sounds funny. Now, this girl drives this car every day. She drive it up to me one time, and it sounds funny. So I said, so I don't feel comfortable with you going back by yourself. Let me drive you. She said, well, how you going to get back? Don't you worry about that. Right? I'm driving you. Drove her. The next day, I called a bus. Whoa. I got on my knees. I said, Lord, if this is my wife, I need you to do 3 things for me. What were those 3 things? There were 3 girls that I had an interest in. And I said, okay, Lord, if she's for me, then all 3 would turn me down. So I called one. This one was the Korean girl. She had asked me to marry her. And I remember saying that, no, I don't think the Lord wants us to get married. So I called her back. I said, listen, I just want to know, are you still interested in us getting married? She said, let me get back with you. So she called me back. She said, I need to ask you a question. I said, what's that? She said, do you still serve the same God? I'm like, huh? Do I still serve the same God? She said, yes. She said, I talked with my professor, and I told him that you told me that God didn't want us to get married. So I need to know, do you still serve the same God? So I said, whoop, okay, I guess that's off the list. Went to the next one. She was a girl who was studying to be a doctor. I didn't want to live on the West Coast, and she didn't want to live on the East Coast. So because we couldn't agree, we said, okay, we're not going to get married. So I called her and said, hey, I'm willing to move on the East Coast. Are you on the West Coast? And she said, well, I haven't changed my mind. So boom, that's off the list. So now here goes the next one. I don't even know the girl's name. She's just a girl I've seen at camp meeting. And I'm like, wow, I'd like to meet her. So I go to Oakwood for a pastoral meeting. I decide to stay over. And then that day, the pastor said, hey, man, come go with me on Oakwood's campus. Went on Oakwood's campus. We went to Carter Hall. I'm standing there in Carter Hall waiting on him. I'm just standing. Then he said, okay, man, let's go. And just about the time we went to turn to go, there's what you call the honors wing. And the door swung open, but it creaks. You hear it. So I turned. It was that girl whose name I don't know. So I'm like, whoa. I went up, introduced myself. I invited her to breakfast the next morning. Of course, it was on the campus. We're going to eat cafeteria food. That should have broke the date right there, all right?
Yeah.
So we get there in the cafeteria and we meet. The next night, that evening, I go to his house, and he comes to me and said, man, he said, you know so-and-so? I said, yeah. Man, she likes you. But then he said, but she doesn't want a long-distance relationship. So that's all three. Now watch. I go back to my now wife, tell her the story, and ask her on the spot, will you be my lady? And then, that's when in October, I asked her to be my lady. In December, I asked her to marry me. And in February, we were married, and it's been 38 years.
Wow. 38 years in just 2 minutes. You just summarized.
Hey, 38 years, and still going.
Still going.
Oh, yes.
And you have 2 daughters.
I have 2 daughters. The first one is a miracle because we were told we could not have children.
Really? Mm-hmm. You've been told so many things that you couldn't.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And then one day, the doctor said, guess who's coming to breakfast, lunch, and dinner? And it was my oldest daughter. Wow. And then 3 years later, we had our second daughter. And now I've been blessed. I had nothing but daughters. But then my daughter has given me 2 grandsons. I got one that's 12, and he's taller than me. But he grew up in my home up until January. And then the one that's 5 grew up in my home up until January. So then they are my boys.
Thank God.
Yes.
A round of applause, because you can see that he is a man that says, God, if you want me to do this,
Yeah.
I could hear from your statements a lot. If you think this is the one. So you always seek God's opinion and his approval in everything that you do.
Yeah.
You know, my producers are telling me I have few time left.
Okay, but real quick, I did not kiss my wife until the day of the wedding.
Oh, okay. So you did it at a church?
I did it at a church, and as a matter of fact, it wasn't a solid kiss because we agreed that we were not going to kiss at the wedding, but the preacher who married us, Elder E.E. Cleveland, he was one of the preachers who married us, he said to me, I know you're going to kiss the bride. And I'm like, no, Elder, we agree. He said, I know you're going to kiss the bride. I said, he said, I know you're going to kiss the bride. I'm like, oh, Lord, how do I tell her that, right? And so sure enough, I pulled that veil back. I wet my lips. And I went to go put that smack on her, and she pushed me back.
Oh.
So, but I did finally get that kiss.
Thank God, thank God. You know, Pastor has said a lot. You know it's about him, but you are the associate. So you just share with us your meeting of. Did you meet her here, or you met her?
Yes, Valley View comes up with a lot of good things.
Really, you met her here?
So I met my wife right here on campus. Yeah, I owe a lot to Valley View.
So she's a alumni.
She is. We met here. At the time, we used to pray right at the entrance where the church building is being built. Right in front there, we used to have a prayer group that would go there and pray after dinner each evening. I don't know if you guys still have Daniel's band, but it was Daniel's band and that prayer group. Okay. So we'll go and pray over there, and my now wife was one of the members in there. So, I was kind of watching her from afar. But her friend, Linda Frimpong, was the one who was close to me. My wife, Elizabeth, was not really a close friend. But as we prayed, I saw her and I kind of felt, okay, she's somebody that I can move with. Okay. But I did not have the courage.
Really?
I did not have the courage.
When they say you mean your mouth, you couldn't.
Oh yeah. Hey, I could have told you, man. Hey.
So one thing happened. as I said earlier on, I had some serious challenges financially, even here on campus.
Yeah.
There were a couple of times I was kicked out of class. I couldn't register. I couldn't go to classes. And I have an uncle at Community 6 in Tema. That uncle, unknowing to him that I know my current wife, gave her shito to be brought to me on campus.
Okay.
So Elizabeth brought it, and I said, "Oh, you know my uncle?" So we kind of talked, and that quarter, there was a class that I needed to take. Classes had started. I wasn't allowed to go to classes, but she was in that class, so she would get her notes, and in the evening, I'll get the book, and I'll study.
Okay.
So that's how we became friends.
Okay.
And then I used to be the baker here on campus.
Yeah.
The bakery used to be right there.
American High.
Yeah, over
American
there.
High.
So when I bake, I'll bake a lot of bread for her.
Wow.
Special one. You know, special one. I'll make a special one for her. And, you know, it continued from there. So that became a staple.
Okay.
Bread every time. Bread analysis. But, you know, we were good friends. We were good friends. And I remember one day telling her, "Hey, Elizabeth, this. And she looked at me and said, "What?
Wow, why
Do you want to destroy? Why do you want to destroy this friendship we have?" Yeah, now come on. We are good friends and you want to destroy it. Why? And I said, okay, right here, I don't know if this is the computer's
yes.
right there was a little runabout in the middle there. And there was a tree. It was October 3rd. One evening, before we went for Vespers, I said, no, I need to ask her this question. So I did, and she laughed at me. And said, she ridiculed me and said, "Kofi Jai, this can't work." And then I was all, you know the man, when you are bounced like that. Yeah. When I see her come, see, coincidentally, I was the Vaviusa president.
Oh, wow.
And she was the entertainment secretary or something.
Okay.
So we'll go to cabinet meetings, and I don't want to see her because, was it no? And so when I see her coming, I'll go this way when I see. But the long and short is that finally I graduated, I left, and then we talked.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
Okay.
In December of 2000, December 10, 2000, we got married.
As Pastor Lamy and the church and the campus and the community as a result of this.